It's Ken Harbaugh with Against All Enemies on the Midas Touch Network, and I've got Amy McGrath with me today, former Marine Corps F-18 pilot who took on Mitch McConnell. But the reason we're talking is this ad right here from the Seneca Project.
In July 1848, courageous women came together in Seneca Falls, New York, to start a movement. They dared to fight against treatment as second-class citizens. After decades of struggle, women fought and won the right to vote, to work without discrimination, to control our bodies, to even open bank accounts without the permission of a man. Each one was a triumph against those who believed we didn't deserve them. Well, today, those hard-fought victories are under attack. Donald Trump and his allies are determined to send us back to a time when we had no say, no freedom, no choice.
I got rid of Roe v. Wade.
Do we want a future where our daughters have fewer rights than our grandmothers? Where their bodies are state property? Their voices silenced? Their opportunities erased? We say hell no. We won't go back. This November, we must take back what is ours, for ourselves, for our daughters, and for the pioneers of Seneca Falls. It's up to us.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? There has to be some form of punishment.
So, Amy, I don't know that I've seen a harder hitting ad about the stakes of going back. And as the Harris-Walz campaign has said, it's become their refrain, we are not going back. Can you talk about the stakes for our daughters, most of all?
Yeah, and the part that in the ad that is so powerful that really stuck out for me was the fact that my daughter, who is 8 years old, has fewer rights right now, thanks to Donald Trump and the Republicans, than my grandmother had. And the line is, do we want this type of future where our daughters have fewer rights than our grandmothers did? I mean, that's real. It's already happened. And they're trying to make it worse. And so when I think about the stakes of this election, that's what I think about. The Project 2025, which is Trump's blueprint for a second administration, specifically would go after women's rights. And so if you want to talk about that, I can get into the specifics, but that is what this is all about right now. And it's about, the future for our daughters. And
Trump has added to his ticket the most extreme candidate he possibly could have chosen as VP, J.D. Vance, my senator, who, among other things, has said the federal government should have a role in monitoring women's travel if it's for the purpose of abortion. I live in Ohio. You live in Kentucky. We are already living in a country where there are medical refugees who have to flee their states to go get life-saving health care. That's got to hit hard.
Yeah. J.D. Vance is absolutely the worst on this. There isn't anyone further right in the Senate than him. Maybe Tommy Tuberville, but I don't know. And what he and the mega Republicans under Project 2025 would do is, they would go after contraception. They really don't like women to be able to have birth control. I mean, they would go after access to contraception. They would go after access to mifepristone, which is the abortion pills, to be able to control whether women can basically women's reproductive health. They would go after Head Start programs for kids. I mean, who does that? Who would get rid of, early childhood preschool for poor children? And it's because they literally want women barefoot and pregnant back in the kitchen. When they say make America great again, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about going back to the 1950s and even before then, where they don't want women to be able to get into the workforce, and part of this Project 2025 specifically has a program in there that would have mass data collection for women's reproductive health care. So in other words, I would have to tell the government about about my health as it pertains to my health care. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. And it's all part of like JD Vance's weird, dystopian, dark control over women's bodies. That's where we're at.
Amy, I think that's 100% right, but it looks like the Trump Vance ticket is doubling down. I mean, you just had JD Vance, I think it was on Fox News, saying that suburban women don't really care about this. They care about normal issues. I'm going to play that clip and then get your thoughts.
Senator, one of my dear friends tonight said to me, well, all these suburban women, all they care about is abortion, and they don't understand that decision is with the states now. It's not banned nationally, even if some people want it to be banned nationally. It's with the states. What do you say to suburban women out there who are marinating in this propaganda?
Well, first of all, I don't buy that, Laura. I think most suburban women care about the normal things that most Americans care about, right?
I mean, I think that, look, it shows you how disconnected JD Vance is to everyday Americans, particularly to women. I actually think he has a thing against women because he's so disconnected. Look, there's a reason why reproductive freedom is actually on the ballot in many states, and it's because this is such a potent issue. So in states like Florida, Arizona, Nevada, Missouri, Maryland, there is, abortion is basically on the ballot. And it's there because people are worried, right? I mean, the Republican Party has literally taken away freedoms from Americans. I mean, this is where we're at. They've taken away our freedom. And so for JD Vance to say, oh, this is not important to people, I don't know who he's talking to. He's talking to right-wing people because he's not talking to everyday Americans. Nobody wants their freedom taken away.
What do you make of the Democrats, led by VP Harris, reclaiming the mantle of patriotism, seizing back the symbols and the language, especially when it comes to the idea of patriotism and freedom? And the contrast with Trump couldn't be any clearer. I mean, here is a president who time and again indicates in so many ways that he actually hates America. I mean, there's this recent clip of him. I'll go ahead and play it, where he calls America a third world country. Here it is.
Personally, we have a lot of important subjects because our country has become a third world nation. We literally are a third world nation. We're a banana republic in so many ways, and we're not going to let that happen.
So, Amy, I think that whether it was an intentional decision or just the DNA of the Harris-Walz ticket to be the campaign of optimism and patriotism and love of country was inspired, and it feels like Americans are responding. What are you seeing?
Yeah, totally. Because Donald Trump is the most unpatriotic nominee for president in American history. And it is the contrast, right? It's freedom versus take your rights away. Okay? It's patriotism versus I am going to shit on veterans and smear their service and call us a third world country and that we're in a terrible state. And all of these things that Donald Trump does literally and JD Vance do on a daily basis. That's the contrast here. And what the Harris Walz campaign is doing is simply saying to people, no, we're America. We are patriotic. We do live in a good country. It can get better, but we are not going to turn around and just totally diminish our country and be so negative and dark. I mean, it really is light versus dark and joy versus fear in this election.
Hey everyone, it's Ken Harbaugh, and I need to take a quick break here to ask for a favor. When I first started doing this show, I hoped it would catch on, but I didn't really believe we'd get to where we are today. That's because of all of you watching and sharing and supporting what we're trying to do here. If you're able to, please consider subscribing on Patreon. It's free to sign up, and if you want to chip in $5 a month, I promise every dollar goes back into this show and into the other pro-democracy work I care about, like my reporting from Ukraine. Head over to patreon.com/Ken Harbaugh to check it out. Thanks for everything. And I think that is a story that all of the pundit class, and maybe I'm adjacent to that, so partly guilty of it, haven't picked up on. This idea that issues aside, and the issues definitely favor us, they favor Harris Wallace, but set those aside, there's just an aesthetic, there's just a sentiment that the American people have been waiting for that says we want to turn the page, we want to look forward to a brighter future. We don't want to make America great again, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean, because we're a country of progress. I don't know what it feels like in Kentucky, which is a pretty tough state. Ohio is too, but it feels different. It feels different than it did honestly, just a couple of weeks ago, but certainly different than it did 4 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, I think people here in Kentucky, this is a super red state, but I don't think that people, I mean, except for the super extreme Trump lovers out there, there's a lot of people who are really conservative and a diehard Republican who really don't like Trump. You know what I hear a lot from is he should just shut up. He should just stop talking. You know, they know that his language is un-American. Yeah. They know that it's misogynistic. They know that it turns off voters, that every other day it's either Trump or Vance who insults women or insults minorities. People get that. They might be like really far right, but they get like inherently, they know, insulting, racial minorities is offensive, and insulting women is offensive. And they do it like every day. And so, they sort of like want Donald Trump to win, right? Because maybe they like his policies or something, but they know that like he is a terrible leader and an unpatriotic man, that they really don't really like him. And so I do hear that a lot.
And they've added to the insults now, insulting veterans writ large. I mean,
oh, yeah.
Donald Trump invented that basically, but J.D. Vance, as a fellow vet, has taken it to a whole new level. I've got to get your thoughts on that. The completely baseless attacks on Governor Walz, coming from someone who, if he applied the same standard to himself, should have reenlisted. But you don't see us criticizing him. Every Dem I've heard has said, J.D. Vance, we thank you for your service. By all accounts, it was honorable as far as we know. What we're criticizing is the dishonor you've brought to that since leaving the military. Your thoughts?
Well, Dems are led right now by the vice presidential nominee, who is a 24-year veteran of the U.S. military and served honorably and was a command sergeant major. And he responded the exact way you would expect a former command sergeant major to respond, which is J.D. Vance served the country. He should be, thank you for your service. I serve my country. I'm very proud of my service. And that's it. And, the attacks. So here's my thought for people that maybe aren't veterans, okay, and don't fully understand the military system. Number one, they're complete bullshit attacks. To say that Tim Walz dropped out because he didn't want to go with his unit to Iraq, that is such a slap in the face to anyone who has served over 20 years. To say he dropped out after 24 years of service when J.D. Vance himself only served 4. Like, that is so freaking ludicrous. I can't even believe we're even talking about this. Plus, it's just a slap in the face. You don't, and the other thing is, what people forget is you get orders. The fact that J.D. Vance went to Iraq and Tim Walz didn't go to Iraq has nothing to do with J.D. Vance. Has nothing to do with Tim Walz. It's Uncle Sam sent certain people to go and certain units to go, and welcome to the military. They're called orders. He didn't have a choice over it. To call a guy a coward for that is, any veteran knows how much of a bullshit thing that is to say to somebody who doesn't have a chance to go, to determine where they get stationed. They could go to South Korea. They could go to Japan. You know this, Ken. I mean, you could be stationed in Camp Lejeune. You don't get a choice. So JD Vance knows this. And so my feeling is, as I was asked yesterday, is it personal? Yeah, it's personal. Because when he attacks a fellow veteran this way and says it in such a manner that the rest of the country thinks that people that didn't go to combat are somehow cowards after serving their country for 24 years, that is just ludicrous. And it is an attack on veterans, and it is personal to me. And the other stuff about a misspeak, I also think that's bullshit. Look, I was a candidate. You were a candidate, Ken. I was a candidate for a few years. Tim Walz's been on the electoral candidacy stage for over 20 years. Misspeaks happen, and he wasn't even talking about his record. He was talking about how we need to get this gun violence in America under control. And he was simply saying, look, we should not have weapons of war that I carried. And he did carry them. He carried them more than J.D. Vance did. He did 24 years as an artilleryman in the National Guard. And so, there's nothing wrong about that. And to say that he is dishonest about it is just so asinine. And we just need to keep pushing back, those of us who are veterans, because I feel like the rest of the country doesn't always know that. And they keep hearing from these guys like Vance and these two numbnut members of Congress that did that speech with him this morning in Pennsylvania, continually calling their fellow veteran a coward. I mean, at the VFW, what are we doing? Like, really? They're bowing so much to the altar of Donald Trump that they have to call their fellow honorable veteran a coward. Really? It's bullshit.
Yeah.
That's how I think about it.
It's going to backfire. I mean, just a side note, the two members that J.D. Vance had in tow for that event both voted against the PACT Act. So you tell me who has veterans' backs and who doesn't. And the real scandal here is that this is all a smokescreen for a presidential candidate who had 5 fraudulent draft dodging deferments. And my line is, look, I really hope the Republicans make this election about military service, because wait until they hear about their guy.
Yeah, it's terrible. And then the other thing is the dishonesty about it. I mean, J.D. Vance talking about one misspeak on a video from 10 years ago by Tim Walz, unintentional, versus his running mate who had 160 intentional lies in the last press conference. I mean, it's like the height of hypocrisy here. It's crazy.
It is. Well, thanks, Amy, for bringing the passion. We should do it more often. We'll let you know when this goes up. Thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.